The sky of Zarathra Prime burned like molten gold as Dr. Elias Gray's small transport ship descended through the thick atmosphere. Inside the cockpit, the human veterinarian checked his breathing mask and medical kit again and again. His hands slightly trembling, he was not a soldier, not a hero, just a man who had spent his life healing animals big and small, but today, he was stepping into a world ruled by creatures far stronger and stranger than anything he had ever seen. The message that brought him here was short and cold. "Come at once, human, my royal beast is dying. You are summoned by order of the Queen of the Vryn Dominion." At first, Elias thought it was some kind of cruel joke. But when he traced the signal's source and found it came directly from the Royal Communications Tower of Zarathra Prime, he knew it was real. He remembered staring at the stars that night, wondering why an alien queen would need a human vet. Now he was about to find out. The landing pad came into view. A massive circle of black metal surrounded by tall guards wearing crystal armor. Each alien had blue-tinted skin and silver eyes that glowed faintly. Their long, clawed fingers gripped strange weapons that hummed with energy. Elias swallowed hard but kept his voice steady as he stepped out. "Dr. Elias Gray, here by royal summons," he said, trying to sound braver than he felt. The guards didn't speak. They only scanned his body with glowing devices, checking for hidden weapons or illness. Then one of them motioned for him to follow. Elias walked between them as massive doors opened ahead, revealing the capital of Zarathra Prime, a living city that pulsed like a heart. Buildings of organic glass grew from the ground like trees, covered with glowing vines that hummed with life. Strange winged creatures flew through the air, their bodies shimmering with light. Elias couldn't help whispering, "Beautiful," and terrifying. The path led to the palace, a gigantic structure shaped like a crescent moon, floating above a lake of silver mist. Bridges of light stretched toward it, and as Elias stepped on one, it rippled beneath his boots like water. He looked down and saw reflections of alien stars moving beneath his feet. He had seen many worlds before, but none felt as alive, as aware as Zarathra Prime. When he entered the main hall, the air turned colder. Hundreds of alien nobles stood in silence, watching him with sharp, curious eyes. Their skin glowed faintly under the palace lights. Their clothing shimmered like molten silk. Elias could feel their judgment pressing on him. A human, weak and small, walking in a place where humans were rarely welcomed. At the end of the hall sat the queen herself. Her throne was made of living crystal, and her eyes burned like stars caught in ice. Her silver crown seemed to float above her head. Powered by invisible energy, the guard stopped and bowed deeply. Elias did the same, bending awkwardly, unsure if he was doing it right. The queen's voice echoed through the hall, smooth and calm yet filled with power. "So, this is the human healer who dared to answer my call." Elias looked up slowly. "Yes, Your Majesty, I came to help if I can," he said, trying to keep his voice from shaking. The queen's expression didn't change. "You are brave, or foolish," she said softly. "No one who touches my fang beast leaves unchanged." Elias frowned slightly. "I don't care about danger, I just care about saving a life," he replied. A quiet murmur spread through the hall. Aliens glanced at each other. Surprised by the human's boldness, the queen stood, her tall figure casting a long shadow over the glowing floor. "Follow me then." "Healer of Earth," she said, turning away. Elias followed as the great doors opened again, revealing a darker corridor lit by green flames. The air smelled of smoke and blood at the end of the hallway. Heavy growls echoed deep and thunderous. Each step forward made the floor tremble slightly. He could feel his pulse racing, still he kept walking, one hand gripping his medkit tightly. When they reached the final gate, the guards hesitated before opening it. Even they seemed afraid. The queen spoke softly. "It is dying, but its rage still lives. Be careful." "Human." The doors slid open with a hiss, and the sound that followed was not a roar. It was a cry of pain. Inside the chamber, Elias saw the creature. Massive, beautiful and broken, it lay chained to the ground, silver scales dull and cracked, wings trembling weakly. Its eyes were like molten amber, filled with agony and confusion. Elias took a slow breath, stepping closer. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to run, but when the beast turned its gaze toward him, he didn't see a monster, he saw a dying soul. Desperate for help, he knelt beside it, lowering his voice. "It's okay. Easy now. I'm not here to hurt you," he whispered. The alien soldiers aimed their weapons, ready to shoot if the beast attacked. But to their shock, the creature stopped struggling. Its breathing slowed. The Queen's eyes widened slightly, the smallest flicker of emotion crossing her face. Elias gently touched one of the beast's wounds, feeling the strange warmth of its blood. His training as a vet took over, calm and focused. He began examining its injuries, noting strange patterns along the veins, like spreading darkness. "This isn't natural," he murmured. "Something is poisoning it." He looked up at the Queen. "I can help, but I'll need time and your trust." The Queen stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Very well, human, save my beast. And you may live," she said. Her voice like cold thunder. Elias smiled faintly. "Fair enough," he replied, rolling up his sleeves. And as the doors closed behind him, the human vet began his impossible mission, to heal the deadliest creature in the galaxy. The heavy metal doors sealed behind Dr. Elias Gray with a sharp echo. The sound of the lock closing made the air vibrate, and for a moment he felt truly alone. The Queen had left the chamber, but 2 alien guards remained near the wall, holding energy spears that hummed with warning. Their eyes stayed fixed on him. Expecting him to fail or die, Elias took a slow breath, pulling out his medical scanner from his small leather kit. His fingers trembled, but his mind stayed calm. He had seen dying creatures before, but never one like this. The beast lay before him. Enormous and half-conscious, its scales shimmered faintly in the low light, but many were cracked open, leaking glowing blue blood. The air smelled like iron and ozone, mixed with something bitter and strange. Every few seconds the beast shuddered and growled, the sound so deep it shook the ground. Elias whispered softly, "Easy there, friend. I'm here to help." The words were gentle, but the alien guard shifted nervously. To them, the idea of a human speaking to a sacred creature like that was madness. He slowly approached the creature's face, noticing how its amber eyes blinked weakly. There was intelligence in those eyes, pain, fear, and something like hope. Elias placed a small device near its neck. Scanning the pulse, the readings flickered wildly. Its heart rate was dropping fast, its internal temperature far too high. Whatever infection it carried was burning it from the inside. He whispered again, "Stay with me." As he opened his scanner's hollow display and started recording data, the Queen entered again, her steps silent as smoke. Behind her came 2 alien scientists dressed in silver robes. They watched Elias closely, their expressions cold. The Queen's voice echoed through the chamber. "How long will it live, human?" Elias didn't look up. "If I do nothing, it dies before dawn," he said. "But if I work fast, maybe I can save it." One of the alien scientists hissed softly. "Human medicine cannot heal royal blood," he said, sneering. Elias ignored him. "I've treated worse," he muttered under his breath. He placed his hand gently on the beast's jawline, feeling the faint vibration of its breathing. Its skin was hot, almost burning. He looked closer at the wound near its chest and a strange, blackened mark surrounded by spreading silver veins. It looked more like corrosion than an injury. When he touched the edge, the beast groaned weakly, and a few glowing drops fell on his glove, burning tiny holes into the fabric. Elias stepped back quickly, eyes widening. "That's not infection," he said quietly. "It's something alive." The Queen tilted her head slightly. "What do you mean?" Elias pointed at the wound. "These are nanites, tiny machines, not natural bacteria. They're eating its flesh from the inside." The alien scientists exchanged shocked glances. The Queen's eyes narrowed, her voice lowering. "Are you saying someone did this on purpose?" "Yes," Elias replied. "Someone wanted this beast dead. And maybe more than just the beast." The room fell silent. Even the guards looked uneasy. Elias crouched again beside the creature, taking a small vial of human-made anti-nanite serum. He had used it once on infected cyberhounds back on Mars. It wasn't meant for alien biology, but he had no choice. He loaded the serum into a thin injector and hesitated only for a second before pressing it gently into the beast's skin. The creature jerked once, a low growl rumbling through its throat. Elias steadied it, whispering again, "I know it hurts, but you have to fight it. Don't give up on me." The Queen stepped closer, her sharp eyes following his every move. "You risk your own life with untested methods," she said. Elias smiled slightly. "Where I come from, every life deserves a chance." The Queen didn't respond, but something in her gaze softened only for a second. The air between them shifted, from hostility to a quiet, cautious respect. Hours passed as Elias worked. The beast twitched and growled in pain, but its breathing slowly began to steady. Elias wiped the sweat from his forehead. His arms were shaking and his back ached, but he refused to stop. The guards exchanged uncertain glances. They had never seen such determination in a human before. At one point, the Queen asked quietly, "Why do you care so much for something that could kill you in one breath?" Elias paused, his eyes never leaving the creature. "Because it's suffering," he said softly. "And pain is the same everywhere, human or alien." The Queen looked away for a moment, as if his words touched something old and buried within her. Finally, after what felt like endless hours, the readings began to stabilize. The black veins stopped spreading, and the beast's glowing eyes focused more clearly. Elias sat back on the cold floor, exhausted but smiling faintly. "It's not healed yet," he said, "but it wants to live." The Queen stepped closer, her long robes whispering against the floor. She looked at her beast and her companion from childhood, the symbol of her power, and then at the small human who had saved it from death. "You have done what no Vryn healer could," she said quietly. "Perhaps the stories about human courage were not lies after all." Elias chuckled weakly. "I'm not brave, just stubborn," he replied. The Queen almost smiled, a rare and dangerous thing among her kind. Then her expression hardened again. "But remember, human, if my beast dies, so do you." Elias nodded, still catching his breath. "Then I guess I better make sure it doesn't." As the Queen turned and left the chamber, her guards following, Elias looked at the resting creature once more. The faint light returned to its scales and its breathing slowed to a peaceful rhythm. He reached out, brushing a hand against its snout. "Hang in there, big one," he murmured. "We're not done yet." And for the first time since he arrived on this alien world, the beast responded. A low, soft rumble that almost sounded like gratitude. Outside, thunder rolled across the glowing skies of Zarathra Prime. The palace trembled faintly, as if the world itself sensed what was coming. Elias didn't know it yet. But healing this beast was only the beginning of something far greater, a chain of events that would change the fate of humans and aliens forever. The first light of Zarathra Prime's twin suns poured through the glass ceiling of the healing chamber. Soft beams of golden blue shimmered over the floor, lighting the sleeping form of the great beast. Dr. Elias Gray had not slept all night, his eyes heavy, his body aching, but he stayed beside the creature, watching the steady rhythm of its breathing. For the first time since arriving on this strange planet, he allowed himself to breathe too. He checked the readings on his medical scanner, the green bars slowly climbing higher. The infection had stopped spreading. That much was good. But something deep inside him whispered that this was not over. He leaned closer, examining the creature's chest where the dark veins had faded. Now he could see fine metallic threads under the skin. Glowing faintly like silver roots, he frowned. "That's not natural tissue," he muttered. "Someone built this infection." The chamber door slid open with a quiet hiss. Two alien scientists entered carrying crystal tablets, their faces cold and proud. The Queen followed behind them, her presence filling the room like stormlight. Even without speaking, she commanded silence. Elias stood and bowed slightly. "Tired but focused, Your Majesty," he said. "The infection stopped spreading, but it's something new. Something engineered." The Queen's silver eyes narrowed. "Explain, human," she said, her tone both curious and dangerous. Elias pointed to the glowing threads under the beast's skin. "These aren't living cells," he said. "They're micro-machines, nanites, but different from anything I've seen before." He adjusted the scanner's settings and showed the holographic projection of the nanites moving like tiny serpents. They're connected by a shared signal, controlled remotely by someone, or something. The Queen's expression darkened. Her voice turned sharp. "You mean this is an attack?" Elias nodded slowly. "Yes, this wasn't disease, it was sabotage." The alien scientists began whispering among themselves in their native tongue. Their voices quick and harsh. Elias didn't understand the words, but he could feel the fear behind them. He looked up at the Queen again. "Someone tried to kill your beast, maybe to weaken your throne," he said. For a long moment, the Queen didn't move. Then she said quietly, "Only my closest circle has access to the Fang Beast's chamber." Her voice lowered even more. "This means the traitor is within my palace." The revelation hit the chamber like thunder. The guard stiffened. The scientists went silent. Elias stared at the beast again. If these nanites were linked to an outside control, he could trace the signal. He set down his scanner and activated the long-range frequency detector. The screen flickered for a few seconds, then a faint pulse appeared, repeating at regular intervals. It was a signal, hidden deep under the palace floor. "There," Elias said, pointing. "Whoever is controlling this." "They're right beneath us." The Queen's eyes glowed faintly, a cold light burning from within. "Beneath my throne," she whispered, anger lacing every word. Without hesitation, she turned to her guards. "Seal every exit. No one leaves the palace," she ordered. The guards bowed and disappeared, their armor humming as they vanished into the corridors. Elias watched her, realizing just how dangerous this moment was. He had uncovered not just an illness, but a political storm. He whispered to himself. "I came here to heal a beast, not expose a war." Still, his curiosity and duty kept him working. He leaned closer to the beast, taking another sample of its blood. The liquid shimmered faintly, swirling with microscopic metallic shapes. He placed it under his portable microscope and watched as the nanites twitched. They were trying to rebuild themselves, forming strange patterns. "Adaptive behavior," he murmured. "They're learning." The realization chilled him. These machines weren't just alive. They were evolving. The Queen noticed his expression. "What do you see, human?" she asked. Elias hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "These nanites, they were designed to survive, to adapt to every cure I try," he said. "They're more than a weapon, or they're a test." The Queen frowned. "A test?" Elias nodded. "Yes, someone is experimenting, and your beast is the experiment." The silence that followed was heavy. The Queen's expression hardened into stone. Her voice dropped low, almost a growl. "If this is true, then my enemies are already within my court." She turned sharply to her scientists. "Double the patrols, burn every infected sample, and find who had access to the Fang Beast before yesterday." Her tone left no room for argument. The scientists bowed quickly and left, leaving Elias alone with the Queen again. For the first time, she looked at him not as a subject, but as an equal. "You've done more than heal my beast, human," she said quietly. "You've uncovered a wound in my empire." Elias gave a tired smile. "Sometimes, Your Majesty, you have to look deeper than the surface to find what's truly sick." Her lips curved slightly. Not a smile exactly, but close enough. "You are strange, Dr. Gray," she said. "Most humans fear our kind. Yet you stand before me without trembling." He shrugged lightly. "I guess I'm too tired to be scared," he said. And for the first time, she almost laughed. The beast stirred suddenly. Growling low, Elias rushed to its side, scanning again. The nanites inside its blood pulsed faster, as if reacting to something. He looked at the monitor and froze. "They're responding to a new signal," he said. "Someone's trying to trigger them again." The Queen's hand clenched tightly, her voice turning sharp. "Can you stop it?" Elias worked quickly, typing into his device. "If I can jam the signal, maybe, but I'll need access to the central comms hub." The Queen didn't hesitate. "Then you shall have it," she said. "I will take you there myself." Together, they moved through the glowing corridors of the palace. The air buzzed with alarm lights and shouts as guards rushed to secure every hallway. Elias followed closely, his heart pounding. The Queen led him into a dark room filled with glowing crystal panels, the communication core of Zarathra Prime. Elias placed his scanner onto the control table. Linking it with the alien systems, he worked fast, rerouting frequencies, jamming transmissions, and isolating the foreign signal. After a few tense minutes, the reading steadied. He exhaled, exhausted. "It's done. The nanites are cut off from their control," he said. The Queen nodded slowly. "You've bought us time." "Human," she said, her tone softer now. "But time is never enough when betrayal hides in shadows." Elias turned to her, his face pale under the chamber lights. "If this attack was meant for your beast, what happens when they come for you next?" The Queen didn't answer. Her eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the twin suns beyond the window. In that silence, Elias realized the truth. He had not just saved her creature. He had stepped into the center of a royal war he barely understood, and the real battle was only beginning. The night on Zarathra Prime was silent, yet heavy with tension. The stars hung low over the royal palace, glowing red and silver like eyes watching from the dark. Inside the Queen's private chambers, the air shimmered with cold energy. The scent of metal and thunder in the air, Queen Serelith of the Vryn Dominion sat before a tall crystal window, her reflection staring back at her hard and unreadable. Behind her, 2 royal guards stood motionless. She did not look at them. But her mind was far away, trapped between trust and fear. The human had saved her beast. That alone was impossible. No Vryn doctor had been able to stop the infection. Yet this fragile human from Earth had done it in one night. She thought about the way he spoke. Honest, calm, never begging for his life. He reminded her of something she had long forgotten. Courage without armor. Kindness without motive, and that was what frightened her the most. Dr. Elias Gray, meanwhile, sat beside the Fang Beast's chamber. His back against the cold wall, the creature slept quietly, its chest rising and falling with steady rhythm. He had cleaned the wounds again, checking every sign of the nanites. So far, they remained dormant. But Elias knew they were not gone, only waiting. He whispered softly to the sleeping beast. "You're stronger than you look, big one. Hang in there." As he packed his tools, he noticed something strange on the floor. A small shimmering shard, thin as glass, glowing faintly blue. He picked it up carefully and examined it under his handheld light. It looked like a broken piece of a control chip. The edges still pulsed with faint energy. Someone was here, he murmured, his eyes narrowing. He stood up and scanned the chamber, noticing faint footprints in the dust, and not his. Not the guards. Someone had entered the room after he left. Before he could react, the doors slid open and the Queen entered, her long silver cloak trailing behind her. Her eyes immediately went to his hands. "What are you holding, human?" she asked, her tone sharp. Elias held out the shard. "I found this near the beast cage," he said. "It looks like a transmitter piece. Maybe what was used to send the infection signal." The Queen stepped closer. Studying it in his palm, her expression changed, from curiosity to fury. "This is Vryn royal tech," she said coldly. "Only my council has access to it." The guards shifted uneasily. Elias frowned. "Then someone close to you tried to kill your beast," he said softly. The Queen turned sharply toward her guards. "Leave us," she commanded. When they were alone, she faced him again, her voice quiet but filled with fire. "You are suggesting that one of my own betrayed me." Elias didn't back down. "I'm not suggesting," he said. "I'm certain." For a long moment, the Queen said nothing. The sound of the Fang Beast's breathing filled the silence. Then she spoke again, slower this time. "If you are right, this is not only treason, it is war." Elias nodded. "And if I'm wrong, I'll take the blame," he said simply. That answer caught her off guard. She tilted her head slightly, studying him. "You would risk your life for a mistake that isn't yours?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Where I come from, a healer stands by his work, no matter the cost." Something flickered in her eyes. Admiration, perhaps, or confusion, but she turned away quickly, hiding it. "You are strange, human," she said. "You speak of loyalty and kindness as if they are weapons." Elias chuckled softly. "Sometimes they are," he replied. The Queen moved closer to the Fang Beast and rested her hand lightly on its snout. The creature stirred but did not wake. "This beast saved me once," she said quietly. "When I was a child, it shielded me from an assassin's blade." Elias listened, saying nothing. "I swore to protect it as it protected me," she continued. "And now someone tried to use it to destroy me." Her voice grew colder, sharper. "I will find them and I will end them." Elias stood beside her. He could feel the quiet rage building in her. It wasn't just anger, it was betrayal. He looked down at the shard again. "If you let me study this in your lab, I might trace where it was made," he said. The Queen hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "You will have access," she said. "But if you betray me, human, I will burn your bones into stardust." Elias smiled slightly. "Fair deal," he said, slipping the shard carefully into a case. Later that night, the Queen stood alone in her war chamber. Her advisors gathered around the holographic map of the palace. "The human is lying," one of them said. "He brings foreign devices and strange words. He may have planted the infection himself," another advisor added. "No human should walk freely inside our royal walls." The Queen raised her hand. Silencing them, her voice was calm but icy. "You fear him because you cannot understand him. But I have seen what he can do." She paused, her gaze distant. "He saved my beast, and he found what you could not, a clue to treachery under your noses." The advisors lowered their eyes, silent under her words, but doubt still lingered in the air. The Queen could feel it. Not all of them were loyal that night as the palace lights dimmed. She stood by the Fang Beast's chamber once more. The creature slept peacefully, its wounds glowing faintly under the healing light, and beside it sat the human asleep against the wall, his medkit still open beside him. She watched him quietly, her expression unreadable. For a long moment she almost smiled. Then her gaze hardened again. Trust was a dangerous thing, and she had learned long ago that it could be a weapon too. As dawn approached, thunder rolled through the alien skies. A new storm gathered beyond the horizon. The Queen turned toward the window, her cloak fluttering like wings. "Human," she whispered softly to the sleeping vet. "I will know soon whether you are my ally or my enemy." But deep inside her heart, though she would never admit it, she already knew something about Elias Gray felt different, and that difference was about to change the fate of her empire forever. The twin suns rose over Zarathra Prime, painting the palace towers in gold and violet light. But inside the royal halls that morning felt colder than ever. Whispers spread through the corridors. Whispers of betrayal, of secret investigations, and of a human who dared to stand beside their queen. Dr. Elias Gray walked through those same halls with his head low, holding the crystal shard he had found. Every alien he passed stared at him with suspicion, their eyes glowing faintly. Their claws twitching near their weapons, he ignored the glares, focused only on the mission, finding who had infected the Queen's beast. The Queen had ordered him full access to the royal laboratory, a privilege no outsider had ever received before. When Elias entered the lab, he stood in awe for a moment. It wasn't a room, but a floating sphere of light and mirrors. Glass tables hovered in the air, covered with strange tools that moved by themselves. The walls shimmered like living metal, constantly shifting in patterns. 2 alien scientists were already there, waiting for him, their faces cold and formal. They bowed slightly when the Queen's message confirmed his authority, but their eyes showed no warmth. Elias placed the crystal shard on the central platform. The system scanned it with beams of blue light that danced across the surface. Lines of alien symbols appeared in the air, rearranging rapidly. He waited, watching the patterns form into data. After a few seconds, the screen translated the signal origin. It came from deep inside the palace, and not the outer labs, not the military floors, but from the Royal Command Wing. Elias frowned, his pulse quickening. "That's where the Queen's advisors work," he murmured. The 2 alien scientists exchanged nervous glances. One of them stepped forward and whispered, "That area is forbidden even to us." "Human." Elias looked up, his tone calm but firm. "If the infection came from there, it means one of your own leaders did this," the scientist hissed softly. A gesture of denial, but Elias ignored him, already sending the data to the Queen's communicator. Moments later, the doors opened sharply, and the Queen herself entered. Her expression was unreadable, but her presence filled the room with authority. "What have you found?" she asked. Elias turned the screen toward her. "The shard's origin points to your command wing. Specifically, the war room transmission node," he said. The Queen's eyes flashed with a cold light. "That node can only be accessed by my inner council, by me, my generals, and my chief advisor, Lord Kale." The name hung heavy in the air. Even the scientists froze at the mention of it. Elias asked quietly, "Can you trust him?" For the first time, the Queen hesitated. Lord Kale had been at her side since her first campaign. He had protected her throne, advised her through every war, and stood beside her when others plotted against her. But now doubt crept into her thoughts like poison. She turned toward Elias. "Find proof," she said simply. Her voice low and controlled. Elias nodded, already gathering his tools. "I'll need to trace the signal's signature frequency," he said. "If we compare it to the palace archives, we'll know who sent it." Hours passed as Elias worked, the lab filled with the quiet hum of machines. The Queen stood nearby, her hands clasped behind her back, her expression cold but focused. Finally, the scanner beeped. The result appeared in glowing letters across the hologram. "Signal match 97% probability. Source ID, Advisor Kale Varthar." The Queen's jaw tightened, a flash of sorrow crossing her face before it hardened into rage. "He dares to betray me," she whispered. Her eyes turned sharp as blades. "Summon him," she commanded the guards. Moments later, the chamber doors opened, and Kale entered, his silver armor gleaming. His posture calm and confident, he bowed slightly. "My queen, you called for me." The queen didn't answer right away. She walked toward him slowly, her gaze steady, her tone deceptively calm. "I did, Kale. I wanted to ask why the royal fang beast nearly died from a weapon that came from your command node." Kale's eyes flickered for a moment. A small, dangerous flicker. Then he straightened. "My queen, I do not understand," he said, his voice smooth. "Perhaps the human made a mistake." Elias stepped forward. Holding up the data tablet, "The evidence doesn't lie," he said. "This shard signal matches your private access frequency." "Lord Kale," the advisor's face turned hard. "You dare accuse me, human?" he snarled, but before he could move, the queen raised her hand. "Enough," she said sharply. Her voice echoing through the room, she stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "Tell me, Kale, why would you poison the creature that saved my life?" Kale's calm mask began to crack. He looked from her to Elias, then back again. Finally, his tone changed, cold and bitter. "Because you are weak," he said quietly. "You rule with mercy, not power. You let outsiders into our halls. You let him into your heart." The room froze. The queen's eyes blazed like fire. "You tried to destroy my beast, my protector, to make me fear my enemies again," she said. Kale smiled faintly. "And it would have worked. If not for this stubborn human," he spat. The guards moved forward, but Kale pressed a small crystal device on his wrist. The floor trembled. Alarms blaring across the palace, Elias shouted, "He's activating another wave of nanites!" The queen drew her energy blade in one swift motion, the air glowing blue around her. Kyle leapt back, slashing through one of the guards with a bolt of light. "Your reign ends tonight, Saralith," he roared. But before he could strike again, the fang beast's roar shook the entire chamber. The massive creature broke through the wall, glowing veins of silver light pulsing across its body. It charged, smashing the floor. The power of its fury unmatched, Kale tried to run, but the beast's tail swept him aside like dust. Sending him crashing into the wall, Elias rushed to the queen's side, pulling her to safety as debris rained down. When the dust settled, Kale lay broken at the base of the throne, his weapon shattered, his armor cracked. The queen stood over him, her voice low and cold. "You betrayed me, Kyle." "And you failed," Kale coughed weakly. "The humans will destroy you," he whispered before falling silent forever. The queen looked down for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she turned to Elias, her voice quiet. "You have saved more than my beast, human," she said. "You have saved my throne." Elias nodded, his face tired. "Sometimes the truth hurts before it heals," he said softly. The fang beast lowered its head beside them, breathing calmly, its eyes glowing with gentle light. The queen reached out and placed her hand on its snout. "For the first time in years," she whispered, "I feel safe again." Outside, the suns rose higher, shining over the palace that had survived betrayal and war. But deep in Elias's heart, he knew this peace wouldn't last. For every secret uncovered, another always waited in the shadows. The sky over Zarathra Prime turned crimson that night. The twin suns had long vanished beyond the horizon, but the clouds glowed red with fire and smoke. From the palace walls came distant echoes of shouting, alarms, and the deep rumble of ships rising from the ground. The rebellion had begun even after Kale's death. His followers, soldiers loyal to his secret cause, had unleashed chaos across the Queen's empire. And at the heart of it all, the wounded fang beast rested inside the healing chamber. Unaware that the palace was turning into a battlefield, Dr. Elias Gray stood beside the creature, his sleeves rolled up, his face pale but calm. He could feel the faint tremors shaking the ground beneath his boots. His med scanner flickered as the lights dimmed for a moment. He looked toward the door where two alien guards stood ready, their weapons glowing blue. "Is it the rebels?" he asked, his voice steady. One of them nodded quickly. "They've breached the lower gate. They're coming this way." Elias swallowed hard, then turned back to his patient. "Then I'll have to keep working faster," he muttered. The fang beast had been resting peacefully since the battle with Kale, but now its breathing grew uneven again. Elias checked its pulse and it was dropping fast. No, stay with me," he whispered, adjusting the life support field. He noticed a small spike on the scanner. The nanites were reawakening. Kale might be dead, but his devices still lived. Elias shouted toward the guards, "Cut power to the lower conduits. The nanites are trying to draw energy, but before the guards could move, a blast shook the entire chamber. The doors cracked open and a group of armed rebels stormed in, their armor marked with Kale's crest, by the old order. One shouted, "Kill the Queen's pet!"
"Kill the human!"
Elias grabbed the nearest tool, a plasma injector, and ducked behind the fang beast's body as blue bolts of energy filled the room. The guards fought fiercely, returning fire, but they were outnumbered. Elias crouched low, covering his ears from the noise. His heart raced, yet his mind stayed focused. He looked at the fang beast's glowing chest and whispered, "If they kill you, this world falls apart." Then, in a moment that felt almost unreal, the great creature opened one glowing eye. It had been weak and wounded, but something deep inside it awakened, a bond formed through trust and survival. It sensed Elias's fear, his determination, and his voice with a deep thunderous growl. It began to rise, chains snapping around its limbs. The rebels froze, terror flashing across their faces. One shouted, "It's alive!
"Fall back!"
But before they could retreat, the fang beast roared, a sound that shook the walls and shattered glass. Wings unfolded with a metallic gleam, scattering shards of energy into the air. Elias ducked behind a console as the shockwave knocked the rebels to the ground. The creature turned its gaze toward him, and for a brief second man and beast understood each other. Elias shouted, "Protect the Queen! They're coming for her next." The fang beast growled low in agreement and charged through the broken doors, its claws tearing through the marble floor. Elias grabbed his medkit and ran after it. The hallway outside was chaos, flames, smoke, and the clash of alien steel filled the air. He could hear the Queen's voice echoing in the distance, commanding her soldiers to stand their ground. When he reached the royal hall, the sight before him made his breath catch. Queen Serelith stood at the center, her silver armor cracked, her blade glowing blue. Around her lay fallen rebels and shattered drones. She turned sharply as the fang beast stormed into the room, its roar echoing like thunder. Her eyes widened, not in fear but in relief. "You healed it," she whispered. Elias nodded, catching his breath. "Mostly, but it's angry," he said. The Queen raised her blade. "Then let its anger serve me one last time." The rebels regrouped at the far end of the hall, hundreds of them. Energy cannons glowed. Charging for another strike, the Queen stood tall, her cloak torn, her eyes blazing. "Zarathra Prime will not fall to traitors," she shouted. The fang beast roared beside her, its wings spreading wide, casting a massive shadow across the battlefield. Elias crouched behind a pillar, desperately rewiring one of his medical devices. He linked it to the beast's old energy collar, trying to stabilize its heartbeat. Come on," he muttered. "Don't lose control now." Then the first cannon fired. A beam of red light cut through the air. Slamming into the floor, the explosion sent smoke everywhere. The Queen raised her shield, deflecting a second blast. But the force threw her back. Elias ran forward, grabbing her arm before she fell. "Stay down," he shouted. She glared at him, half smiling. "You give orders to a queen now?" He grinned faintly. "Only when you're bleeding." Before she could answer, the fang beast released a blinding burst of light. Its scales glowed silver blue, its eyes burning with fury. The nanites inside its body had merged with its energy, transforming it into something even the Queen had never seen. With one powerful strike of its tail, it shattered the rebels' front line, scattering their weapons across the marble floor. Elias shielded his face from the storm of energy as wind and heat filled the hall. The Queen lifted her blade again and shouted, "Forward for the Dominion!" The battle lasted less than 10 minutes, but to Elias it felt like an eternity. When the smoke cleared, the palace was silent again. Bodies of fallen rebels lay scattered, their weapons still glowing faintly. The Queen stood tall beside the fang beast, her armor scorched but her spirit unbroken. Elias slowly walked forward, his scanner still in hand. He checked the beast's vitals. The readings were strong. "It's alive," he said softly. "It's finally healing." The Queen turned to him, her face softened by exhaustion and quiet pride. "You did more than heal it, human," she said. "You gave it back its will to fight." The fang beast lowered its head toward Elias, breathing warm air across his chest. He reached out and placed his hand gently on its snout. "Guess we make a good team," he whispered. The Queen smiled faintly, a rare, genuine smile. "Perhaps," she said quietly, "perhaps fate brought you here for more than medicine." Outside, the crimson sky began to fade to silver. The battle was over, but the scars of war would remain for years. As the queen looked out across the ruined halls, she whispered softly, "Zarathra Prime still stands." Elias nodded beside her. "And so do we," he said. For the first time since his arrival, he felt a strange calm settle inside him, the kind that came after chaos. He looked up at the twin suns rising again beyond the broken palace windows. The war was over, but something deeper had changed. Between a human healer and an alien queen, a fragile bond had formed. One built not on power or fear, but on trust, and in that fragile bond the future of two worlds quietly began. The dawn after the battle came slowly over Zarathra Prime. The air was still thick with smoke, and the once glorious palace now carried the scent of burned metal and scorched stone. But for the first time in many days, there was silence, no shouting, no explosions, only the soft hum of the wind through the broken towers. In that silence stood Dr. Elias Gray, looking over the battlefield that had nearly destroyed an empire. He had slept for only a few hours, his uniform still torn, his hands still stained with glowing blue blood. Yet he felt a strange peace inside him. Beside him lay the Fang Beast, massive and calm, its wounds sealed, its breathing deep and steady. The creature was alive, truly alive, not just surviving but strong again. Elias ran his hand along its metallic scales, whispering, "You did well, my friend." From behind him came the sound of footsteps. Light yet powerful, Queen Sarilith approached, her silver armor now replaced by dark ceremonial robes. Her expression was tired but composed, her eyes softer than he had ever seen them. "The city is quiet," she said quietly, standing beside him. "The rebellion has ended," Elias nodded slowly. "But peace is fragile," he said. "There will always be another threat." The queen looked at him for a long moment. "You sound like someone who's seen too much war." Elias gave a small, weary smile. "On Earth, I saw enough suffering. I thought coming here would be different." She tilted her head slightly. "Yet here you are, standing after a war that was not yours." He chuckled softly. "Maybe healing is its own kind of battle." The Fang Beast shifted slightly, lowering its head toward the queen. She reached out and placed her hand gently on its snout, her touch almost affectionate. "This creature once saved me when I was a child," she said quietly. "Now it has saved my throne again because of you." Elias looked away modestly. "I just did what I was trained to do." But the queen shook her head. "No, human. You did what no one else dared. You saw life where others saw a weapon." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the suns rise together. Then the queen spoke again, her tone turning formal. "The council has gathered," she said. "They await my decision, your reward." Elias raised an eyebrow. "My reward." She nodded. "You have saved the royal beast, stopped the rebellion, and uncovered treachery in my court. By the law of the Dominion you are to be honored." He smiled faintly, brushing dirt from his hands. "I don't need riches, your majesty. Just a safe trip home." The queen frowned slightly. "You wish to leave?" "Yes," he said softly. "I've done my part here," but something in her expression changed, and not anger, not disappointment, but something quieter. "You have become part of this world's story," she said, "and stories like this do not end easily." She turned and began walking toward the grand hall. Motioning for him to follow, Elias hesitated, then sighed and followed her through the corridors still glowing from battle scars. When they entered the throne room, the atmosphere was heavy. Dozens of high-ranking aliens stood in neat lines, their armor reflecting the pale sunlight. The Fang Beast stood behind the throne, majestic and silent, a living symbol of power restored. As the queen sat upon her crystal seat, the crowd bowed deeply. Elias stood near the steps, feeling out of place among all the glowing eyes and regal voices. The queen raised her hand for silence. "This human," she said clearly, "came to Zarathra Prime as an outsider, summoned by chance, doubted by all. Yet he healed what our own could not. He faced danger without fear, uncovered betrayal without hesitation. And when the fire of rebellion burned through these halls, he stood beside me." Her voice grew stronger, carrying across the chamber, by his hands. "The royal beast lives by his courage, this throne still stands." A murmur swept through the court. Some bowed respectfully, others watched in quiet disbelief. The queen stood from her throne, taking a small emblem from her arm, a glowing crystal symbol shaped like a flame. She stepped down toward Elias. "Kneel, Dr. Elias Gray," she said. He blinked in surprise. "Your Majesty, that's not necessary." "It is," she said firmly. "You have earned it." Slowly, Elias knelt before her. She placed the crystal emblem against his chest, and it attached itself to his torn uniform, glowing softly. "From this day forth," she said, "you are recognized as an ally of the Dominion, a friend to the Vryn, and a guardian of life across the stars." The hall echoed with a low hum of approval. For the first time in history, a human had been honored by the Vryn Empire. When the ceremony ended, the Queen dismissed the court and approached him privately. "You could stay," she said softly. "We could use a healer like you, not for beasts, but for people." Elias smiled faintly, his voice calm. "Maybe one day, but for now, I think I belong where I started, among my own kind." She nodded slowly, though her eyes lingered on him. "Then at least take this," she said, handing him a small crystal sphere. "It contains the knowledge of Vryn healing art, a gift from one healer to another." Elias took it carefully, bowing slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty." "Goodbye, human," she said softly. "May the stars guide your path." Hours later, his small ship lifted off from the palace courtyard. The Queen watched from her balcony, her hands clasped before her. Beside her stood the Fang Beast, its golden eyes following the ship as it disappeared into the silver clouds. She whispered quietly, "Farewell, Elias Gray, the healer who tamed a queen's beast." As the ship broke through the planet's upper atmosphere, Elias looked down one last time. The glowing cities of Zarathra Prime shimmered below like veins of light through dark stone. He smiled to himself, whispering, "Guess I made it out alive." But deep in his chest, he felt something else, a quiet pull, a connection that no distance could erase. He knew that somewhere in that alien palace, a queen and her beast were alive because he chose to stay when everyone else would have run. Weeks later, stories began to spread across the galaxy. Stories of a human who healed a dying monster, saved a royal throne, and walked away asking for nothing. They called him the human healer, the beast whisperer, the man who spoke to stars. Each world told the tale a little differently. But one truth remained the same. Wherever compassion was rare, his name became a symbol of hope. And though Elias never sought fame, the legend of the brave human vet who healed the alien queen's deadly beast would live on. A story whispered in every corner of the galaxy. A reminder that sometimes, even in a universe filled with war and fear, one act of kindness could change the fate of worlds.